Okay. So welcome to the department. I understand that for most of you it is your first lesson in the department, so I will be mainly using this first meeting to give some information about the department, about this course, some general advice for your future years in this department. First, let me introduce myself. Well, this is my name, you already know it. I'm the advisor to the department chair, so if you have any complaints about the department, anything about in the department, if you want to address the chair of the department, you can also contact me, so I will let you know. Well, I'm specialized in high energy physics, in hadronic physics, like I'm studying the interactions of quarks and gluons, which now we know that they are the particles making the proton and the neutron. It's not only the proton and neutron. We know that we have hundreds of such particles that we observe in the experiments. So I'm just studying their properties. So if you have any questions about this one, of course you can ask me, not during the class, but after the class. And this is my email. So you can contact me anytime about anything through email. If we cannot resolve it through email, you can just come to my office anytime. I don't use an office hour. I will not be announcing an office hour. You can just come to my office anytime you have any questions. If I'm busy, we will just fix some other time to meet. So if I have time, we can discuss whenever you come. Just don't restrict yourself to a particular hour in a week. Anytime you want, just drop by my office. And of course, if you have questions, physics questions we will be discussing, I would prefer if you first discuss it with your friends rather than just directly coming with me. There will be a forum which you can post your questions. So if you post your questions, your friends will probably be able to answer them better than I do. So that should be your first choice. Of course, if you post the forum, I also see your questions, and I will be also answering your questions through the forum. If it doesn't work, we can just arrange for a meeting. And this is my webpage, and I try to keep up the course webpage. You can also reach the course homepage through this link, but all of this information will be available also in other places. Now, the textbook that we will be using this year will be this one, The Principles of Physics, Holiday and Resnick. By the way, this PDF document, all of the PDFs and everything written on the blackboard will be posted. So we will be using the system called the Opti class. So if you are registered to this course, you will have access to everything that you see in this projector. Now, for those who are taking this course for the second time, this is not the book that we used to use. So this is now a new book. I would advise you to get this new book sooner or later. The material covered is more or less the same. So the outline of the course will be more or less the same with slight differences. So what will we be discussing in this course? Now, as a summary, it's just the physics as a science. Then how do we describe motion? Now, this term will be concentrated on motion only. So how do we describe it, first of all, to start with? What's the precise meaning of describing the motion? Now, this will be a complicated subject. The main complications will be most of the things that you have learned in high school. You will hear that most of the time I will tell you that the things that you have learned, the way you have done the things in high school, they are wrong. The problem is they work. They get you the right answer. So if you are only concentrated at getting the right answer, okay, you will be able to succeed in this term, but it won't take you any further. So starting from next term, even starting from the second half of this term, you will see that the way you do the things in high school, they will cause you to lose track of this course towards the second end of the semester. So you can just think of this year, in fact, as a means of learning the language, properly learning the language, not just getting along, but learning precisely how to express physical facts, how to make precise definitions and derivations. And of course, once we are able to describe the motion, the next thing will be what causes the motion. Why is there a motion to start with? And why does it change? And now this dynamics, we know that there are 3 laws of Newton that describes how the motion comes about, how the motion changes. Those are called the Newton's laws. and we will do this 3 things will be like 3 weeks, or at most 1 month. And the rest of the semester will be just applications of Newton's laws. And towards the end, we will be discussing some, I don't know if we will be able to discuss it. There's some probabilistic concepts in physics. Now, whenever people think of physics, people tend to think of it as a deterministic system given some initial conditions. There's always, you can tell what the final state will be. Now, in modern physics, we know that at fundamental level, things don't work that way. The physics, at least our current understanding of nature is nature seems to be a probabilistic system. Nevertheless, we can still make some definite statements about what will happen. Now, before in Newton's time, we said that, okay, if I just release this book, the book will fall down. It was 100%. Now, with other modern understanding, if you keep dropping this book millions of times, there is a finite probability that it might just stay here. Of course, how many times do you have to drop this book to see one such event? Well, that is more than a couple million times the age of the universe. So practically, you will never see it. But there's now that's what I describe as quantum mechanics. Even without quantum mechanics, even in the classical systems, I mean, the probability concepts help us a lot in understanding nature. Now, unfortunately, as your instructor, I have 2 choices here. Either I will be covering this subject, but we will have just a very short amount of time that we will be able to spend on it, so most of you will not be able to follow it. Or I will not cover this subject and spend more time on the applications of Newton physics. I'm more tempted to do the other one, but we will decide towards the end of the semester. And these are the applications of Newton's laws, from friction, circular motion, gravity, work and energy, etc. Now, you are not restricted to this book. You are advised to look for other books. One book that I used to like, unfortunately, I mean, the Physics of H.C. Ohanian, the 4th edition. The last edition I don't really like that much, but until the 4th edition, it was a great general physics book. And there's these Feynman's. How many of you have heard of Feynman? Okay. Feynman. Okay. That's good. He has some lectures on physics. Now, Feynman is, I mean, when people think of physics, people usually think of formulas. Feynman was famous for describing physics, explaining physics without using formulas. Now, physics is not just formulas. There's lots more beyond formulas. And this is a series of 3 books, 3 volumes. And the first one is about the things that we will be discussing this semester. It has very few formulas. Now, if you read the preface to this book, this was used as a book for a general physics course. If you read the preface, it says that these books were a failure as a textbook. Now, they're not a textbook. They cannot be, I don't think they can be used as a textbook. But it's still great to read this book to at least understand that there are other ways of looking at physics. And there are all kinds of other sources, like the open courseware projects in various universities. MIT has a nice one. It's quite rich. There are also mechanics and all kinds of courses are available. The lecture notes, sometimes videos, homeworks, sample questions. And this is the link. Well, unfortunately, the lectures of Walter Levin, which are really great general physics books, they are withdrawn from the MIT OpenCourseWare webpage. But you can still find them on YouTube. There are Turkish translations. And okay, so this is the link to the Turkish translation. It is at this webpage, the açıkders.org.tr. Again, if you just take this PDF, you will all get this PDF. And click on this link or this physics one, you will just go to the webpage, the relevant webpage. Now, TÜBA, Turkish Academy of Science, had an effort on creating Turkish course materials in various subjects, not just general physics. And you can access all the courses from here. And ODTÜ also has such an OpenCourseWare website where you can find information about various sources, including your physics courses, the courses that you are taking now, that you will be taking in the future. They are available at this webpage. Now, this is another book that I would suggest you to read, Feynman's Lost Lecture, The Motion of Planets Around the Sun. There is also a Turkish translation prepared by TÜBİTAK. Now, the nice thing about this Feynman's Lost Lecture is that when you take classical mechanics course in your third year, you will be studying, also here we will be studying Kepler's motion in a very basic level. In the third year, you will study it in more detail. Most of them you will be calculating integrals, derivatives, you will be solving differential equations, etc., just to prove that the orbit of planets are just ellipses. Now, again, this is Feynman's lectures. He doesn't use any integrals, very few formulas, and he proves that the orbits are ellipses. Now, of course, he starts his lectures, half of his lectures is in fact devoted to ellipse. What's an ellipse? Yeah, okay. This is a description that I would have, if I had a pen, I would just drop, okay, this is an ellipse. But as a physicist, you have to learn how to be precise about what you mean. This is an ellipse, not a perfect one. What's a perfect ellipse? So he spends half of the lecture, if the lecture note is 50 pages, almost 20, 25 pages, is describing the ellipse. What's an ellipse? So because if you want to prove that the orbit is an ellipse, you first have to understand what an ellipse is. Okay, just saying that this one wouldn't be enough to prove that the orbit is an ellipse. And of course, you are not restricted with these books. We have a library. Just go to the library, pick up any book that you like. It's a great source of finding information. Okay, we have the internet. I don't remember the last time that I went to the library. It was like years ago, because whenever I need a book, I just look it up on the internet. There are some electronic resources, etc. But it's a pity. The thing is, if you go to the library and if you don't know which book to pick up, what you do is you just pick one book, look at it. If you like it, you take it. If you don't like it, you pick up another book. But while you are looking at that book, you will learn a lot. Okay, so this is probably the most boring part, the grades. Most of the students start asking, okay, how will we be graded? What's the weight of this and that? Now, the first thing that I want to remind you, the grade shouldn't be your purpose, your aim, your main aim. You should be concentrated in learning the material. Once you learn the material, at least in an ideal case, if you learn the material, the grades will just measure how much you learn, and if you learn it, you should get high grades. If you concentrate on the grades, if you just work towards getting a high grade, what happens is you can succeed in getting a high grade without learning the material. Okay, you pass this year, you pass this course, but in next year or the third year, you just fail because you haven't learned the material here. Now, this is the weight, how the grades will be distributed. Okay, we will have some pop quizzes. Well, these pop quizzes, I will not inform you beforehand how many of them will be and when they will be. It will be just simple questions that you can solve in just a couple of minutes. And they will be also questions that are easy to read for me, because let's say if I do one quiz, that means I have 100 pages to read, and I wouldn't like it to take like 2 weeks. So it will be easy to solve and easy to read questions. We will have 2 midterms and 1 final exam. The midterm and the final, they have the equal weight. And there is also the homework, which is 20%. You will get more or less 1 homework every week. Most of them will start after the ad drops. And then you will have pre-reports. Now I will go over each one of them. What are they? You will have pre-reports, and there's also the bonus. Now, this bonus it will not be taken into your average grade, so you will be graded only on these. The curve will be calculated based on these, and I will determine a letter grade based at the end of the semester. Now, if you translate 5 items, at least 30 pages, and then whatever letter grade you took, you will get half a letter grade above. So it will not be considered as part in this average, but it will just increase your grade by half a grade. And of course, there will be in Opti class, there is this forum. Let me just open that link if you haven't gone to Opti class. Okay, when you go to the Opti class, this is the web page that will greet you. So you have to log in with your Meta username and password. And these are all the courses. And here you will see a list of all the courses that you are registered to. If you couldn't register to this course yet, after the ad drop, your name will these courses will also appear in your Opti class. Now, these are all the courses that I'm lecturing, and this is Physics 109. So this is what you will see already. Now, here there is a detailed list of the subjects that we will be covering. Well, this is mainly what I covered last year. Now, this year we will not be exactly following the same schedule, but it won't change significantly. So this should give you an idea about the subjects in detail that we will be discussing. Okay, so here you will see on the top there are these videos. On the year 2013, there were video recordings of these lectures. You can access the video recordings from this link. All of the semester is recorded. So if you just miss some subject, if you miss some class, you can just go to these videos and see, just listen to it. The material we will be covered will be more or less the same, although the book will be different. Now, of course, it will be kind of hard to find which of these videos is about which material, but there is this Made to Open Courseware web page. Here, if you go, there is the physics. There is this mechanics one. Again, you have all these courses, and furthermore, you also have what is covered in each video, a list of the material covered in each one of the videos. So if you miss a lecture, you can just listen to the same material through these videos. Now, here there is this news forum, or discussion forum, let's say. Let's start with, where you can ask questions. So if you have any physics-related question, I want you to ask it first here. I will not answer any question about physics that is not asked here. Now, I haven't yet opened it up, but if you don't want your name to be seen, you can just ask a question without your name being seen. So there will be an anonymous posting. So if you don't want your friends to tell who you are, you can just post anonymously. But just first open it here. If your friends ask questions, if you know the answer, just feel free to reply to them. I will be also following these discussions, so if you say something wrong, I will have a chance to reply. And if you ask interesting questions here, not just questions that you can find at the end of the book, or questions that are related to your everyday life, for example, then you can also get a bonus. Okay, what are pop quizzes? I will not be taking attendance formally. I will not be passing around the paper where you will be signing. But what I will do is I will just distribute these pop quizzes. So their purpose is, you have already read the 10 ways of annoying your professor. And believe me, it's not one of my pastimes to read 100 quizzes. So I give quizzes because I think they will help you in encouraging you to attend the lectures. Your responsibility, just like my responsibility is to be here on the lecture day at the lecture time, your responsibility is also to be here at the lecture day on the lecture time for all lectures. So the quizzes will encourage you to attend the lectures, and furthermore, you have to study regularly. If you don't study regularly, now most of the time, most of the students that I have talked with, what they do is they study just, let's say, 1 week before the exam, and they get a high grade, but The problem with studying at the last moment is there are so many material that you think that you'll learn, but just after the exam, you just forget everything about them. But all the materials that we will be discussing will be based on each other. So we will start from the basics, build on top of that, and go to the complicated material. If you forget the basis, you will not be able to understand the complicated material. And the way to force all these information into what's called long-term memory, well, the psychologists have all these terminologies. Now, what happens is if you just study for 1 week, it just ends up in your short-term memory and you just forget it. So if you keep repeating it, that is, if you study regularly, it makes into your long-term memory, and even when you graduate, you will be able to remember that. And of course, if you study regularly, you won't have to work very hard just 1 week before the exam. And as I said, there will be just simple questions about the things that we have been discussing. And simple questions that can be easily done and easily read. And their time and number will not be announced, so they can be any time during the day, any time during the week. We can have weeks without any pop quizzes and days in which we have more than one pop quiz. And there are also these pre-reports. Now, when you come to the class, if you come unaware of the things that we will be discussing, most probably you will not be able to follow the lecture. So you have to have some idea about what we will be discussing in the lecture before coming to the lecture. Now, when I tell these to the students, and I just stop there without forcing it somehow, only 1 or 2% of the students does that. So this is the way I came up with how to enforce the students. So I will be giving you the reading assignments. Well, I had received some emails asking me which chapters will be your reading assignments. All the chapters will be your reading assignments. So one by one you will be preparing pre-reports. I'm not asking you to learn the chapter in detail. What I'm asking you will be just read through the chapter. And just whatever you understand will be fine. And write a short half a page summary of the chapter. What did you learn? If you didn't understand something, well, ask the questions in the pre-report. So it will be 1 page, half of them what you have understood from reading through the chapter or just going through the chapter, and half a page what you didn't understand. So that if, for example, 20 students ask the same questions, I will know that I have to stress more on that point. And if nobody asks a question, I will know that I can just pass fast. Now, you will be uploading in OptoClass. Well, I didn't yet create anyone. Now, I will be creating some just for you to test how this pre-report thing works. So I will be just creating them in OptoClass. You will upload it there. If you don't ask any questions, if there's no summary, or if there are too much overlap with resources from the internet, your pre-report, I will not accept your pre-report. So it will be as if you haven't submitted a pre-report. There will be also homework. Well, the homework will be mainly to encourage you to study regularly. Just solving the homework question won't be enough. But the homework questions will be let's say, the maximum that we can read in a week. And we can read and grade. So you have to work beyond the homework, you have to solve more examples, you have to try to understand. You are free to prepare your homework in groups. Just discuss with your friends. In preparing groups, I mean, you are free to discuss with anybody that you like. I mean, there are sometimes students coming to me and saying that, oh, I'm trying to solve all my homeworks on my own, I get low grades, shouldn't I deserve more credit? No. Physics is a collaborative. Doing physics is a collaborative effort. So you have to learn how to collaborate with your friends. Just form groups, study the homework questions together, find the solutions together. The only important thing is that whatever you hand in should be what you have understood, not what your friends had prepared. So you are free to discuss. If you learn the subject, if you learn how to solve the problem, write down what you have learned. And if you do it on your own, all of you will have different ways of expressing the same thing. So there won't be any similarity. If there is similarity, again, your homeworks will not be accepted. Okay, there is the final exam. There is the recit examination that at the end of the semester, if you fail this course, you can take a recit examinations if you have you had the right to enter the final exam. So this UCAT, the higher Committee of Higher Education, has this new concept, at least in May 2, before we didn't have this. Now there is this thing of you have to earn your right to take the final exam. And how do you do that? Well, let's say, how do you lose your right to take the final exam? If you miss more than 30% of pop quizzes, I'm not going to take you to the final exam. If you don't show up in any one of the midterms without any excuse, I will not let you in the final exam. If you don't prepare pre-reports the pre-reports will not be graded. It's just either I will accept it or I will refuse it. I will not accept it. If more than 2 pre-reports are not accepted or you didn't prepare them, I will not take you to the final exam. And, well, okay, this was last year. You are not doing the term project this year, so not this one. These 3 ones are the criteria. Now, the main reason is, you see, there are like 170 students taking this exam, and if you are not attending the lectures, or if you are not coming to the lectures or already prepared for the subject that we have discussed, I don't think you will be able to pass this course. So I just don't want to read the final exams of those students who are not going to pass the course. Okay, so those were the boring things. Do you have any questions about them? About how we will be carrying out the lectures? Okay, so you had those who are registered to the course, they have already received 2 emails. In this, let's see. Okay, there is this news forum. News forum is where I used to send you emails. Whatever I write here, they are sent as an email. Now, you have received 2 emails. One is this frequently asked questions, and just before sending me an email, just read over them. There are already information about how to, about the quizzes, the pre-reports, the final exam, etc. I mean, after receiving those questions like 20, 30 times in the last, hundreds of times, let's say, in the last 2 years, I just put it there, you can go over them. Now, before that, there are 3 readings or videos. There is this Sykes 11 rules and message to the freshman students by K.M. Parsons, and there is this Confessions of a Converted Lecturer. And I personally find this video quite illuminating as an instructor. This lecture is mainly aimed at instructors. How do we teach physics? I will be talking about some of the things that I found interesting in this video, but I also think that it will be illuminating for you. How do you learn physics? Or how do you learn any subject? Does all the methods that you tried work equally well? Do you learn better by doing something? How do you learn it? Those are the questions that he tries to address. And then, of course, you have all these questions. Now, the other email that you received about the LaTeX. Okay, this is an image that I like. What is LaTeX? It's a text process. It's a way to prepare documents. It's especially used in the academic world when I prepare my papers, articles using LaTeX, and most of these documents, including these slides I prepared in LaTeX. Now, it's to start learning LaTeX seems a bit complicated. So you see, if the document, if you try to prepare simple documents, just a letter or I don't know, 1-page things, it's much easier to use the Microsoft Word or equivalents. But as the document gets complicated, I don't know how many of you try to write some complex formulas in the Microsoft Word. Anyone? Okay, you Just one. Okay, so do give it a try. Just find one complicated formula and try to write that formula in Microsoft Word. How do you write it? It gets really complicated. And with LaTeX, it starts out to be a bit complicated to learn LaTeX, but it doesn't get more complicated than that. As the complicated documents get quite complex, the complexity of your document doesn't increase much. So I do suggest you to learn LaTeX as early as possible. Now, one nice thing about this auto-class system is that you can use LaTeX over there. So, for example, you can create such symbols. Or if you want to write formulas, so you can write, especially if you want to discuss physics with your friends, inevitably you will want to write down formulas, show your friends some of your results, and I will be just talking about some formulas, some results. And you can just write such formulas by just a single line. And in this question, in this letter to you, the email, I just describe you some of the basic things that you will need in using LaTeX. So if you need more complex expressions using LaTeX, there are many resources on the web, or you can also just email to me and I will add it here. You don't have to use LaTeX. I wish I could enforce you to prepare your homework in LaTeX, but I will not do it. So you can prepare your homework by hand and then give it in the class. Of course, if you prepare in LaTeX, I will not refuse it, but I think it will be too much for you. Other questions? You can translate to your, what's your mother tongue? Arabic. Okay, you can translate to Arabic.
And the slides, would you upload them?
Sure. All of these slides will be uploaded. When we start the lectures, I will not be using the slides, but I will be writing on my tablet, and you will be able to follow it on the projector, and even those I will be put on the web in auto class.
Is there a specific format for the pre-reports? Specific format for any report?
No, you don't. In your pre-reports, I don't want any math. Your pre-reports should be. What did you understand? Not just formulas. And you will be uploading your pre-reports to a software called Turnitin. Well, what Turnitin does is it just takes whatever you have submitted and then compares it with millions of sources on the web. And if it finds any similarity, it will just announce the similarity. You will know how similar it is. I will know how similar it is. If it is above 30%, I will just refuse your report. Now, one problem about writing formulas in your pre-report is the formulas are quite general. So if you write formulas, it will find those formulas somewhere else. So you will have a high similarity. Anything about physics in English Wikipedia. It's your responsibility to find the items. I will not distribute a list of items that you can translate. You have to find it on the Wikipedia, items that are not translated. I will not be helping you on uploading those documents on Wikipedia. It's your responsibility to find how to upload those documents.
If there are more than two people doing if there are more than one person that's doing the same subject on Wikipedia, which one gets the credit? Is it the one to upload it first or to announce it first?
So once you decide what you want to translate, you have to put it over here. Well, you see, some of your friends have already done that. So once you are deciding what you want to translate, check this website so that nobody has translated it, has chosen that. Now, if still you didn't check this website for your friends, what they want to translate, and you make the translation, even if you upload it first, your friend will get the credit. He will need to do less translation.
For the textbook,
Yes. There are lots of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can I handle that?
I mean, pick one. Pick some questions. Choose some. I mean, whichever ones you can see.
We have to read all of it.
Well, we will be covering half of this book. Let's say the material that we will be covering. Okay, this much we will definitely cover. This much, well, maybe. We will decide at the end of the semester. Now, there are lots of questions over here. Don't forget your questions. Now, you might not have enough time to solve all of them. Just pick some questions randomly. I mean, you have to be randomly. One problem with picking up questions is usually students tend to pick up questions that they are able to solve. Just pick them randomly. Now, if you cannot solve a given question, just take that to mean that there is something you have missing. There are certain things that you couldn't really understand yet. And review the material, discuss it with your friends, discuss it with me. Don't just skip that question because you cannot solve them. In principle, you should be able to solve all the questions at the end of the chapter. Yes?
What about the rest of the book?
Second semester. We will be using the same book second semester also.
Now, the open courseware, do you suggest Leonard Susskind's classes?
Well, I don't know. I didn't look at that. I looked at some of the lectures that I wanted to follow at my level. I wouldn't suggest you to follow those lectures. But I think he has some general mechanics lectures also. I mean, he's a good lecturer. He's a great lecturer. If you can follow the lecture material, follow it.
We will finish this book in first year?
Well, let's see. We will be doing the majority of it. Well, let's say, as I showed, we will be definitely doing the first 15, 16 chapters. That's for sure. In the second semester, we will be discussing the electricity, and we will be doing like the 14 chapters of this book. We will not be doing the modern physics part of these books or the relativity. So we will not be covering everything, but the majority. And also, okay, I will come to this. Yes.
Is there a provided manual solution for this book? Manual solution.
Manual solutions. I don't advise you to take the manual solutions, the solutions manual. For example, I will not be distributing the solutions to the homework. And the thing is, okay, you say, if you take the manuals, what do? I mean, it just doesn't sit in your library, you look it up, right? So you find a question, you try to solve it, and then you check the manual. So either you have done it right, or you have done it wrong. If you have done it wrong, what you do is you look at the solutions and, oh, okay, so I learned the subject, so I can pass to the second question. That is a bad thing to do. If you couldn't solve that question, that means you didn't understand the material properly. Just learning the solution of that question didn't teach you the material. So you have to review the material. But if you have the manual, you will just look up the solution. Now, second thing, well, nature doesn't come with a solutions manual. Eventually, as a physicist, you will be trying to explain nature. So how do you judge that your answer is, if you observe a phenomena, you have an explanation for the phenomena, how do you judge that your explanation is correct? That is something you should learn. I mean, when you have an explanation, you should be able to tell, at least to yourself, that whether it is definitely true, or is probably true, or what might go wrong with your explanation. If you have the solutions manual, you don't practice that ability. So I wouldn't advise you to look for a solutions manual. I'm sure you can find it on the web. I mean, it's available on the web, I'm sure. But don't do it. You will be harming yourself more than helping yourself. If you are not so sure about your solution, go ask your friend. Does he or she have the same solution? If yes, ask some other friend. Well, if no, then discuss which one is correct. Don't look for solutions. Other questions? Yes.
Will there be a recitation out?
Probably. Yes. Well, the problem with the recitation hours is, first of all, I don't yet know the assistants for this course. I mean, the assistants of last year, they just left. So I don't know. There will be some new assistants assigned to this course, but I don't know who they will be. Now, second thing, with 170 students registered to this course, and you are all taking different sections in mathematics, different sections in English, etc., it's hard to come up with a common recitation hour. In the previous years, what we did was we determined 2 different recitation hours. One assistant was doing one, the other one was doing the other one, but most of them still had to do it at 5:40. And at 5:40, nobody shows up. So when it's about determining the hours of recitation hours, so everybody just objects to hours at reasonable times, and when you determine an hour and you start the recitation, nobody just shows up. So we will still give it a try. If there are demand for a recitation, we will arrange for recitation hours and see how many of you show up. Okay, so let's come up to some fun things. Okay, this was a list. If you just click on this link, you will go to all 10 of them. I just picked up a couple of them. Okay, one thing is this reference. Now, especially in your second, third year, you start to think about going abroad or finding a job, and you start worrying about your grades. But my advice to you would be, you should worry about your references more than your grades. Your grades will be important, but your references will be more important. So if you get a bad reference, there's no way you will be accepted. If you have bad grades, but good references, the chances are quite high that you will get some, either a position abroad or in Turkey. Okay, arrive late for class. Okay, one thing that I used to do, especially in high school, is that I just didn't tell anything, and just the students don't show up. And when I go to the lecture, this is in the graduate school, but it also happens in undergraduate courses. I go on time, nobody shows up. I just wait like 15 minutes, everybody starts to show up. And you all have excuses about, okay, the bus was late, and you were sick, you had to go here and there. And then I just impose the rule that, okay, if you don't show up on time, I will not take you in the class, and suddenly all the excuses just disappear by magic. So, I mean, you can, even if this is an 8:40 class, it's quite early, you can show up on time. And if you are not showing on time, it's not because of the bus or the snow or etc. It's because you didn't take precautions. Okay, last year I was also making the same first meeting talk. Okay, skip class and arrive the following session asking, did I miss anything? Well, last year there was a student after the first class, after I showed this one, asked me, did I miss anything? Okay, don't come up with that. Okay, this is, you will be having lots of homework, one homework every week, more or less. You will have pre-reports, one pre-report every week. You will have quizzes, on the average, one quiz every week. Well, it's a lot of, you might complain that it's a lot of coursework load for you. You will have probably midterms, homework from other courses, but just believe me, our hobby is not reading your homework. So we will be as happy as you are if the world existed or if you could learn without homework. So we don't have to spend our time reading that. And believe me, reading 100 pages of more or less the same mistakes gets boring. Okay, this is more or less the same thing. And I have a strong belief that if you don't have to do your homework, you will just lose 20% of your grade. If you say that, okay, I don't mind losing 20%, you don't have to do your homework. But then don't show up at the end of the semester telling me that you did everything to learn the material, but you are just failing. So it's my strong belief that if you don't attend the lecture, actively attend the lecture. Now, one bad thing about the quizzes is that or taking attendances is that you start to see all these students sitting right at the back, and they will be sleeping most of the term. Well, when the quiz is here, they're attending the lectures, but that is not attending the lecture. You have to be actively participating in the lecture if you want to really learn. Okay, this ethics, unfortunately, we are having problems with ethics, ethical behavior. Now, some of the things that we have been seeing is, for example, last year I was also teaching the lab, and in the lab you have to do one term project, and at the end of the term project, some students just showed up the results of somebody else. So that's not something you have to do. Or they couldn't do their project, they just invented some numbers to analyze. So you shouldn't do that. I mean, you should be, first of all, if you have a finding, you might not like them. But so what? Whatever you find, you have to report that. I mean, an analog of this is when in the exam, sometimes I ask, okay, show that blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you start making all these explanations. I say, show A. You start making all explanations against A. And then the last sentence, and hence we prove the point A. No, I mean, all your arguments are going, if all your arguments are going against A, then you cannot claim that A is true. If the data, you will be doing the experiments also, this will be more relevant there also. If your data that you took doesn't agree with what you expect, well, that is what you obtain. You cannot modify your data. And you have to report whatever you have. Okay, another problem here was the quizzes. Now, I have been this is my third year lecturing this course. I did the quizzes for the last 2 years. The first year, okay, nobody in the department had experience with these quizzes, so it worked fine. Now, the second year, the students just came up with ways to go around quizzes. And one of the methods that they used was, for example, in days when I could count that in the classroom there were 80 students, something around 80, I read 120 quizzes. So some of you wanted to be, let's say, nice to your friends and just hand in a quiz for your friend. Now, in one case especially, a student didn't know that his friend was in the classroom, so he handed in a quiz for him. And the friend was in the classroom, so there were 2 quizzes for them. Okay, so in such a case, as an instructor, I have 2 choices. Either I will start to take all the precautions to prevent that, but that would be like treating all of you as cheaters, and I don't want to be the policeman after the cheaters. So I kind of refuse to take too many precautions about that. You will see that in the quizzes, you will be sitting wherever you are. It's quite easy to look at your friend, to cheat, to give a quiz for your friend. I will not change that. The only modification I will have would be last semester, just one student from each row could just give me the quiz. This semester, I want every one of you to hand in their own quiz, one by one. Now, another problem, especially in writing reports. Now we have the internet, there's all kinds of information that's available. So quite often what happens is, we see this behavior even in 4th year students, unfortunately. So after that, we started to see that in 4th years, we are now informing you in advance. So if you take anything, a sentence, a paragraph from anybody else, your textbook, whatever internet source you have to give a reference. You have to make sure that whoever is reading that material understands for sure that that sentence belongs to that other people. It's not your work. This is called plagiarism. If you just copy exactly whatever somebody has done, or copy exactly even the ideas. Well, it's hard to test how to check the plagiarism of ideas, but even that is a plagiarism. Don't do it. If you are taking the results from somebody else, give credit to him. Okay, another thing. Well, did you receive all these brochures, leaflets about the department? This is also a list this is an excerpt. There is prerequisite table. Now this, probably you cannot see it, but 109 is somewhere over here. Okay, this is 109. So you can just look at this prerequisite table. And you see that these 109 and 110, they are prerequisite to your second year courses, which are prerequisite to third year courses, which are prerequisite to fourth year courses. So if you failed 109, well, if you fail 109, you can still graduate in 4 years. But if you fail 110, it's inevitable that you will be extending your studies. So just be careful not to fail this course. Don't drop out of these courses. Okay. So I will be skipping these ones. Now we want to learn things. I will come back to this one on the third hour. Okay, measurement. Now measurement is an important part of physics. So you cannot talk about physics without measuring. You cannot talk about science without solid measuring. Now, one thing that we would like to do is measure learning. So how do you measure learning? Okay, we will be discussing that next hour. Now, we will give a 10-minute break, so we will start at 45 and then pick it up from here.